Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So we'll continue the discussion. President Trump says he's 50-50 on Iran deal or bombs. And we'll meet his negotiators this afternoon. That's Axios. The Wall Street Journal reporting the immediate goal of the mediators, Iran and the U.S., isn't a formal agreement, but some sort of letter of intent or memorandum of understanding that would extend the ceasefire and lay out a framework for further talks. All right, a framework for further talks, which would probably mean if this framework comes up, they'll release assets, money to Iran, maybe in return for some kind of loosening of the Strait of Hormuz, who knows. But the red lines on nuclearization and enrichment and so forth that the president is stuck with would be subject to further talks. So that's all I know. Steve Forbes is here, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. His latest book is Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. Steve Moore, WABC radio host of More Money, coming up right after this show and most of these same radio stations. And ace pollster John McLaughlin, who is a prince because he's been very flexible today, and we appreciate that. CEO of McLaughlin and Associates. Steve Forbes, I begin with you. What do you make of this new news? We had General Keane on earlier in the show. He was quite disappointed in this news. We had Alex Gray, former chief of staff of the National Security Council. He was quite disappointed in this news. We don't know everything there is to know, but what do you think about the rumors?
The rumors, if there's any substance to them, when it looks like there is, I'll be blunt with you, Larry, is a huge strategic defeat for the United States. The idea that we can cut a deal that's going to have any durability and credibility going out in the years ahead is preposterous. This is a bad government. We've known from the beginning they'd try to string this thing out to undermine our will to destroy that regime. And if we had not done that ceasefire several weeks ago, Larry, the war would have been over today. Oil prices would have been coming down. The Strait of Hormuz would have been opened, and this crisis would largely be behind us. So the idea you can do anything constructive with this regime, we should have known after 47 years, is preposterous. And it's a huge disappointment that the president would even consider such a thing. I hope it's all false and that we resume and finish what we should have done 6 weeks ago. Otherwise, even though the economy is showing real signs of vigorous life, and there are some other good things out there, what's happening overseas is going to cast a real dark cloud on our future if this holds.
You know, Trump has never made a bad deal, and I have a lot of faith in him. But Steve Forbes, I'm inclined to agree with you. Although, you know, we don't know what we don't know. But
right.
It's a disappointment. When General Keane came on to mention this, it was quite shocking to me. Roger Wicker, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said yesterday publicly that it's time to get this thing over with, complete the bombing. So that was the last word I had until these rumors broke. John McLaughlin, just politically, you know, if it's not a good deal, John, is it going to really help in the midterms?
Well, you know, I was doing the polling for the Trump super PAC against Congressman Massey. And Congressman Massey at one point was a popular incumbent and been there for 14 years. But he was voting against the Republicans on key issues and made an issue of it. But we had him down 7 points on Sunday, and he ended up losing by 10. But in the same surveys, we had 3/4 of the people wanted to, suspend the federal gas tax, but they also wanted to confiscate the assets from Iran to lower the price of gas and pay for the war. We've frozen assets, and now here in this deal, they're talking about giving money back. And by the way, we posted a national survey yesterday, last month we had 60% to 30% public opinion was on the side of the president that we ought to finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
And in this also the survey, they said Iran should not, 71 to 16, this is 1,000 likely voters across the country, Iran should not be allowed to block, attack, mine, or extort ships in the Strait of Hormuz.
By the way, that jives with the Harvard-Harris cap poll, Mark Penn's poll, which was out about 10 days ago. 70%, basically support Trump on the war. When you phrase it in terms of nuclear weaponry and so forth, the same thing. Steve Moore, on this point, it's not likely, unless hundreds of ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz, okay? If that's part of this deal, that will make it probably more popular, I guess, and bring down oil prices, and gasoline prices too. But if you just have a few ships, or if you have Iran's word, which is utterly worthless, I mean, it's not going to really help anything on the oil and gasoline front, Steve.
Well, look, people are certainly angry about paying $4.50 a gallon for gas, and I understand the politics of this, that Trump wants to increase the global supply, so it brings gas prices back down. But look, I'm not a military or foreign policy expert, but I just want to dovetail on something Steve Forbes just said. The economy is actually doing surprisingly well.
Booming, booming,
booming, maybe
4.3% Atlanta Fed GDP now.
Yeah, I don't want to too much overemphasize the Atlanta Fed numbers because they've been pretty wrong lately. But nonetheless, I mean, you look at I laugh at all these surveys. It's, because this is as low as ever been in history. Well, they're sure spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I feel pretty good about the economy. Obviously, it'd be a big lift if we could get that gas price down. And just finally, I just have to say this, Larry. I was there yesterday with our buddy Art Laffer for the swearing in of Kevin Warsh. I cannot think of anybody better than Kevin Warsh to run the Fed, and he will bring inflation down. He is an inflation hawk, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think he is going to help the economy a lot right out of the gate by we got to get inflation back down to 2%, and I believe he will do that.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
By the way, I spoke to him Thursday. I couldn't. I'm on vacay.
Oh, we missed you. We missed you, Larry. It was great. We had all the supply. I don't know, but it was really fun, and it was a great event. And by the way, he gave both Donald Trump and Kevin Warsh gave remarkable speeches. And by the way, he said, "Look, I'm going to be independent. I will be an independent Fed chairman." And Trump said, "I want you to be independent." So that I think the markets love that.
Kevin forgave me for my vacation. He forgave me, so that was very, very important. And Steve Forbes, you and I are going out to California for the Reagan Library. I guess you're still going, aren't you?
Yes, I am. And I'm glad those fires didn't end up canceling the event, even though they had to close the library several days this week because of those fires in the Simi Valley. Yeah.
I didn't know that. But if you don't go, I don't want to go. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. We'll be there and lay out what happens in the next 250 years. The nice thing is we won't be around to be called on our what we see ahead.
Hey, Steve Forbes, will we have a flat tax sometime in the next 250 years?
Oh, obviously, probably in and out, but we can say anything for 2.5 centuries.
But Kevin Warsh made it very clear that he wants to be a reformer at the Fed. And apparently the president spoke and said you're going to be completely independent. So I thought that both of those were very constructive, Steve.
Yes, it is. And one of the things I hope, and we've discussed this before, that Kevin Warsh lays down that this whole idea of prosperity causing inflation, the so-called Phillips curve, is a dead letter, and start doing conferences and papers and the like to bury that, because if the Fed ditches that, other central banks will ditch it, and we'll finally get some sensible monetary policy that focuses on dollar stability rather than trying to manipulate the economy and getting antsy anytime the economy does well.
By the way, John Carney had an interesting thought today. You know, Steve Myron has to leave his seat at the Fed because Jay Powell is remaining on the board, at least for a short time, and Warsh takes Myron's seat. But Warsh could put Myron in as some kind of chief economist or chief of staff and help him to make the reforms. Myron's pretty solid supply-side type guy, Steve.
I hope so, and I hope he moves away from some of the noises he's made in the past about the dollar being overvalued.
Yeah.
He's got to put that stuff aside. But Kevin Warsh setting out that there's going to be a fundamental change in the models of the Federal Reserve and other central banks would be very powerful in the future. Very powerful.
John McLaughlin, I don't want to leave you out because the Republicans in the Senate and the House, let's say the Republican senators have gone home. They didn't even pass the DHS bill. They haven't really developed much of an economic growth message. I haven't heard much from them, in fact, on anything, John.
No, and it's a problem because, I mean, you and Steve are going, and Steve's on the board at the Reagan Library. You're going out there and talk about economic growth, and, you're on the wrong coast. The guys in Washington need to realize it because, last year public opinion was in favor of firing, Powell. They were in favor of passing the Trump tax cuts to stop the Democrat tax cuts. And if we don't, you're telling we got a 4% growth. Like Steve's book about inflation said, the only way out of inflation is to grow your way. And the Republicans should have another reconciliation bill because we had recently 57% of all voters think it's more important that you have a reconciliation, a bigger package rather than a skinny package with economic growth.
The Kudlow plan.
And in this poll that we just posted, the Republicans are losing the generic ballot for Congress 42 to 46. Trump has a 49 job approval, and the Republicans will only get 42%. There's a gap between
that's your
Trump
poll?
supporters.
Wait, that's your poll? Trump's at 49?
49. We ask it 49, 48. And we ask it, it's online. You could go to McLaughlinonline.com. I'll send it to you as usual, Larry. But there's a gap between the Trump vote, Trump approval, and the generic ballot for Congress because they're not enacting, whether it's the Save America Act for voter ID, proof of citizenship to vote, whether it's whether it's the tax cuts or another pro-growth package. There's a gap between Trump supporters and Republicans in the House and Senate, particularly the Senate, I think.
By the way, I got to take a break. Steve Forbes' solution to inflation is more growth with a sound dollar. I just want to put that in there because he's taught us all about the sound dollar. Very important point. I hope people understand. I bet they do. They want the dollars in their wallets and pocketbooks to be, let's say, Steve, they should be worth the same tomorrow as they are today. Is that the right way to put it?
Be undermined by the Washington politicians.
Yes, undermined by the politicians. All right. Steve Forbes, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media. John McLaughlin, Ace Pollster. Steve Moore's More Money coming up right after this on most of these same radio stations. I'm Kudlow. Quick break. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're talking politics and money. We got the great Steve Forbes, Chairman and Editor of Forbes Media. We got Steve Moore, WABC radio host of More Money, coming up on most of these same stations after this show. And Ace Pollster, John McLaughlin. Steve Moore, interesting piece in the Prosperity Hotline. The census in 2030 is going to be even more tilted towards more red seats, more red congressional seats, and fewer blue seats. That's on top of California's gas price, which is now $6.50.
Well, just a couple comments on that. By the way, happy Memorial Day, and we pay a great debt of honor to the people, men and women who have done so much for our country. The red states could pick up as many as 12 additional congressional seats as a result of this massive migration that's been going on now for the last 15 years of people out of high-tax blue states into low-tax red states. And it just continues day after day after day as people really are voting with their feet against the high regulation and high taxes of these states. And by the way, the division between high tax states and low states is actually getting wider. So all the blue states right now, including Washington State, New York, California, my home state of Illinois, are raising their taxes, and so many of the red states are cutting them. And so you are seeing a big change in wealth into these red states. And on the other point that what was the
gasoline, $6.50. Speaking of taxes,
so this is pretty remarkable. I mean, they're paying now as high as $6.50 a gallon now in New York, and someplace $7 a gallon, and so. The Chevron now has these signs at the service stations all across the state that say, if you're angry about high gas prices, you should be, and blame Sacramento and the governor of California for the anti-fossil fuel policies and the high taxes. And now basically Newsom has come back, and now he's taxing Chevron. I've never seen anything like this. He's telling shoppers, don't shop at Chevron. I mean, if I were Chevron, I'd just shut down my gas stations there and move somewhere else. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I know it is.
I mean, what kind of governor attacks companies in his own state?
There's a difference. One of my favorite Wall Street Journal editorials, there's a difference between 14.8% and zero.
Yeah, that's for sure.
City and state taxes in New York are 14.8%. If you live in the city and state taxes are 14.8%. Mandami, by the way, would raise them a couple of points. If you live in Miami, Florida, or Dallas, Texas, they are zero. Yeah. There's a difference between 14.8 and zero. So,
by the way, can I mention one other quick thing? I just want to welcome Jeff Bezos to the supply side. I mean, have you been listening to what he's saying?
Yes.
I mean, he used to be a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, and now he's saying taxes do matter. I guess he's reading Steve Forbes' books or something, because he is on our side now.
Actually, Bezos is better than you think he is, and even before this, but he's pretty good. John McLaughlin, can Paxton beat Cornyn in Texas? It's on Tuesday, I guess.
Yes, there's been a poll out that I'm watching the media polls. I'm not active in that race, but Paxton is up by about 20 points now. It's all because
whoa.
Cornyn had his shot of. The Trump voters are very loyal to Trump in Texas, and primaries are not our problem right now because they're very loyal to President Trump. It's the general election that will be a problem, but. We got to keep these Trump voters excited so they keep coming out. So,
can you send me, by the way, the poll? It's your poll, likely voters that you talked about a few moments ago. Will you send me something on that?
Yes, I will.
Forbes and I are going to talk about that when we have our fireside panel out in California. I think that's really very, very interesting. Steve Forbes, speaking of politics, what did you think of the Democratic autopsy? What do you think about that?
I think it was an autopsy of the bankruptcy of the ideas of the Democrat Party. We know why they lost. They had the wrong solutions, the wrong ideas, the wrong candidates. And amazingly, when you look at the candidates for 2028, they're all coastal candidates. That's not going to win a national election, and that underscores the need to get the Kudlow plan, a big, fat, juicy reconciliation bill with tax cuts across the board, especially for middle-class people in those middle brackets. Pass that, and then the Republicans have something positive going the elections with, because not just gas prices people are worried about, they're also worried now about interest rates going up. Mortgage rates are starting to inch up. not a good thing. That's why get this war over with a true resounding victory. Get that good reconciliation bill through, and November won't be an unhappy time. It'll be the opposite. Happy days will be here again.
It's still there. You're right. It's still there for the taking. It's oh boy, we're going to have to work through that all weekend long and see what happens. Steve, the housing bill, I don't know if they've actually passed this housing bill, but my point is the least they could have done was inflation index the capital gains tax, so you'd unlock a lot of housing assets. I mean, really, Steve, just what is wrong? We've been fighting for this for so many years and make so much sense. Did the bill pass, Steve Moore? I didn't even know if it passed. I'm not sure it passed. I don't think it passed.
I don't know, but it's not a good bill. And incidentally, the best thing you could do is free up housing by letting people sell their homes.
Yeah, unlock it. All right, fellas, I can't thank you enough. Steve Forbes, Steve Moore show's coming up after this. John McLaughlin, please send me your poll. Folks, I'm Kudlow. Thanks for listening. Be back next weekend.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.